This episode of No Time Like Joe Time is sponsored by Fate in Flames on Kindle Vella. Rena has grown up sheltered and cut off from the world, caring for her ailing mother. When fate catches up with her, she is thrust into a world of magic and intrigue she never knew existed, and the heritage she is not quite sure of. Read Fate in Flames on Kindle Vella.
Welcome to No Time Like Joe Time, where TV gets deep for no reason. I'm Generic Joe, here to say the same thing each time before you listen to an episode. You can find No Time Like Joe Time wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm just that generous and kind of a guy. Please rate, please like, subscribe, and comment, because I'm magic. It also really helps grow the show, and I've loved the conversations I'm having. So maybe you can help your old friend Joe. Now, if you, and I mean just you, want to be a guest, you can email me at notimelikejoetime@gmail.com. Love to have you on, figure out what show you like, and then we'll have a meaningful discussion. All right, let's get to the episode.
Like what you are listening to? Check out Lazen Low on Spotify Music, a new and upcoming local band from Minnesota.
Welcome to No Time Like Joe Time, where we take a ride with our favorite shows and pay the fare with wisdom we find in the clips. I'm your host, Joe Johnson. Each week I call a cab to bring a guest with me to talk about thus said clips. This week I am joined by just a lovely person, Shay Leonia. Okay, how do you say your last name?
You got it, Leonia.
Did I really?
Yes, you
Wow.
did.
I'm leaving that in there so everybody will be like, he got it first time. Together, we are going to look at the show that came out before Uber and Lyft. We look at Taxi.
Hey, Joe.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Shay, sorry. I didn't see you entered the meeting.
Sorry to scare you. Hey, can I ask what you were doing?
Oh, yeah, of course. So I actually decided I want to be an Uber driver, and I have to create this video showing that I'm a safe driver. I'm kind of going through the emotions of what I do in the car. Say, do you mind if I show you what I have so far, just to kind of get your input?
Of course. Happy to help.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, I'm just going to pretend like I hit record and, okay, first thing is buckle your seatbelt. There we go. And check your mirrors. That's great. And then turn on the car.
Doing great, Joe.
Thanks. Next, connect your phone to your Bluetooth speaker and listen to something quality. Welcome to No Time Like Joe Time. Oh, no, that's horrible. There we go. There's some good music, driving music.
Joe, you might want to turn that down. I don't know if your passengers will appreciate the loud music.
I have earplugs. So the next thing is back out of the driveway, and this neighborhood kids are playing hockey in the street again. Hey, punks! Why don't you take this somewhere else, out of my sight, or I'm gonna hit some speed bumps.
Joe, I don't think.
I got this. Don't worry. Next, I put my blinker to turn, go nicely, and this is where I pop my Pop-Tarts open and put them in my.
Wait, you have a toaster in your car? Why am I not surprised?
Well, next then, of course, you got to make chocolate milk.
Joe, all of this is incredibly unsafe.
Ah, crap! The popo are trying to pull me over. Time to Jesus! Eat, lad, suckers. Hey, Shay, I need a place to lay low for a while. Can I come over?
No.
Great, I'm on my way. The cops asked I was with you all day. What do you think?
I don't know what I just watched, but I know that that was the worst bit of driving that I've ever seen. You should probably not be an Uber driver
Lyft driver?
or a Lyft driver or just a driver at all.
Huh. Oh, right. What am I supposed to do? Call a taxi?
Yes.
Shay, taxis have not been around since 1901.
What is happening? Taxis are still around. That's not how you drive, and your history is awful. I don't know what else to say.
I have one thing to say. Look, I know this was all a little crazy, and I can become a bit of a assertive driver. I just have to say, Shay, can I get a ride to Dairy Queen? I've been blitzing for a blizzard lately.
Get my coat.
I've become more confident in these. The first, so I had first 11 episodes were like friends of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this is gonna be great. And then recently it's been people off that Facebook group. And so the first person, I'm like, here's a script for
Oh no.
really stupid stuff I do. You don't have to do it. But so everybody's been a really good sport about it, including
that's
you.
good.
So,
Aw.
and I'll probably already have started recording on this because I kind of just go into it. So yes, thank you for doing that. You were great.
Oh, thanks. So are you.
So I again so excited that you are here. I'm really happy, and it makes my day just to get to meet somebody new. And it took me all of like 6 seconds to be like, Shay seems pretty cool.
Aw,
So
thank you.
yeah, so I'm glad you're on. And so I feel like I haven't talked about this yet, because people who are listening to this is like, how come Joe knows so many people? I don't. We met through a Facebook group. I threw an ad on there, or not ad, post on there. It's just like, hey, here's what I'm doing. I do got a question for you with that Facebook group.
Sure.
You ever feel intimidated by all the like posts that they have? Because sometimes I feel like there's like 3-time like award winner of this, and I'm like,
That's a great question. You know, I've just recently started joining those Facebook groups because I've been looking to be a guest on more shows.
yeah,
But funny enough, I seldom find musicians to come on my show. So I've just been throwing my hat in the ring to be on whatever show
Yeah.
I can.
what is your show?
My show is called the Millennial Musician Podcast, and I created it to help indie musicians to get the right information for them to navigate their careers so that they ultimately don't quit. Because if they quit, they don't get to put out the songs. If they don't put out the songs, they don't get to change people's lives.
That is so cool. What a great premise, and what a great like support. That's beautiful.
We're trying. Yeah.
So yeah, man, I just love that good energy put into the world. I mean, just
Same.
to have that place of needing like extra support.
Yeah. It's tough because indie musicians, they feel like they don't have any leverage, especially when they're first starting out.
Yeah.
So they become very susceptible to getting exploited or paying too much money for certain things that aren't necessarily relevant at that stage in their career. So that's why I'm really just motivated to make sure that they get the right information, and instead of all of the information, which is what's out there right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to get this out of the way right now before we'll come back to it at the end. But where can people find you?
Oh, they can find me at the millennialmusicianpodcast.com. My name is Shay Leonia. You can also find me on Instagram at Shay Leonia. And shoot me a DM.
Perfect. We'll put this in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
And if you go to her through this, tell her Joe sent you.
Yes, please do.
Everybody's gonna be like, no, I'm too embarrassed to say
Oh,
I know that.
They better compliment our acting.
Yeah, I know. I expect so. We've been, it's funny. It's actually the new guests, who have been like committed to it the most. So yeah, I'm glad you're putting all that positivity with musicians. I'd imagine anybody connects with you have got to be appreciative. So I'm not a musician, but even I'm like, oh, because that's something I don't think about is when you're starting off with stuff, it probably feels so intimidating.
Yeah.
And when you have that group, same thing for me with podcasting. This is kind of, so just really quick side story. I got into podcasting because for a while I was at a place where I wasn't depressed, but I wasn't happy.
Mm.
And I'm like, I want to not just be okay.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about what I wanted to get into or try. And I was like, man, podcasting seems kind of fun. And I was like, I think I have a good story for mental health recovery. So I think I want to do that. So my wife and I started a podcast called Two Voices, One Story, where we go through my mental health crisis and go through, like, our oldest was born premature and had to get a trach.
Oh, wow.
So we cover kind of all this, but I was like, I really like this. And a lot of this is really deep, but it doesn't like cover my silly side.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where this came into. And when I joined that group, suddenly it was like, oh, there's a collective and it feels good to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So,
I'm so glad that you started.
Yeah, thank you. So speaking of positive vibes, I feel like the clips you chose were such positive vibes. And like we said at the beginning, comes from the show Taxi. I'm wondering if you could tell us why you picked Taxi and kind of what your history with the show is.
Yeah. So speaking of mental health and like deeper stories, so my mom, when she was, I want to say 50 or 49, was diagnosed with, at the time it was called Pick's disease, but now it's known as FTD, which is the same disease as Bruce Willis and Wendy Williams. And so for anybody who's unaware, it's not the same as Alzheimer's. It's a form of dementia, and she deteriorated pretty rapidly, pretty fiercely. It's a very unforgiving disease. And once she was in her vegetative state in the nursing home, I was very young at the time. I was like 9 years old. My older sister, who was 12 years older than me, she was my caretaker at the time, and she was making sure that we went for long drives at night. We were blasting Led Zeppelin in the car. But in terms of television shows, which we were a huge television show family,
Yeah.
Taxi was the show that was the equivalent of the healing that Led Zeppelin was providing for me. So the last few days that my mom was still alive, we were in her nursing home. We were told that she was going to pass any day now. And so we were spending extended hours at her bedside watching Taxi marathons that we had recorded off the TV. And so everything from the theme song by Bob James all the way through every single episode. I mean, even without it having that sentimental value to me, it's an excellent, excellent show.
Yeah.
But just having that sentiment also makes it a very, very special show to me.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. That's a lot to take in, and it's kind of this combination between heartache and beauty.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but I'm glad that you had this media. And that's one thing I've experienced too, where a lot of media, I'm sure everybody on this podcast listening is so tired of me telling this story because I feel like I say it like every other one.
Well, I've never heard it, so you tell me.
So for me, it was The Simpsons. And growing up, my dad and I had a really strained relationship. But when we watched The Simpsons, we were bonded.
Yeah.
And so whenever I watch The Simpsons, I have this warm feeling about my dad. And so like yeah, I love how media can do that.
Yeah.
And and kind of a little bit of my history. I've watched a few episodes of Taxi here and there. I've always really liked it, but for me, I kind of started getting into it actually at my grandpa's funeral.
Wow.
And my brother and I, we were having a tough time, and my aunt she was like, "Hey, can I tell you some funny clips from Taxi?" We're like, "Yeah." And so she told us about one where like I can't think of his character or his name, but he's trying to
Jim
do a
Ignatowski.
doing a driver's test, and he
Yep.
asks, what does yellow light mean? Slow down. What does and
That
like,
is such a classic. Like, that's the go-to for anybody who's never seen Taxi. You have
yeah,
to play them that clip because
yes.
they'll instantly be like, "Oh, I get it. Okay, brilliant."
And so like it was it brought us away from that grief and kind of brought us back to laughing and in humor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really excited when you picked Taxi because I knew about it. I knew it's a good show, and it was like, oh, this is a great opportunity for me to rewatch some of it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very, very cool choice, and I'm glad you picked it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So I think so we'll play our first clip, and it is a absolute sweet clip.
I wish I could hear you answer me. I wish I could hear you say something. Left me a tape. You like Stevie Wonder? You are the sunshine of my life. That's why I'll always be around. You are the apple of my eye. Forever you'll stay in my heart. I feel like this is the beginning. Though I've loved you for a million years. And if I thought our love was today, I'd find myself drowning in my tears. Whoa, the sunshine of my life. Yeah. That's why I'll always stay around. Yeah, yeah. You are the apple of my eye.
Oh, I watched that before, but with like your backstory, I almost like
Yeah.
brought to
It's
tears.
so what's happening in that scene for anyone who hasn't seen Taxi before
Mhm.
is Jim, the character, he has an estranged relationship of sorts with his millionaire family,
Mm,
because he decided to become, this drug addict hippie, and he left, and so he finds out that his father died. He goes back to, pay his respects, and finds that very large suit because his father was very overweight.
yeah.
So I mean, there's laughs throughout the whole episode, but then he just, sets up the jacket very sweetly and says, I wish I could hear you say something. And he just wants to hear him say that he loved him the way
Yeah.
he was. So then when he
Mm.
finds that tape from
Yeah.
Stevie, it's
Yeah, it's so well done. It's just like you can see on his face the like, oh, you like this? And then
yeah,
you left this for me
right.
because and it's one of those, there's so much going on, but at the same time, not.
Yeah, thank you, because Jim Burrows, who directed Friends and Will and Grace and
Yeah.
like all Cheers,
Yeah.
he directed so many classic shows, and this was one of them.
Mhm.
And the fact that he used so much space, like there's so much time to absorb what at like every
Yes.
facial movement that
Yes.
he's doing, and it's the it just goes to show when you leave that spaciousness in art to fill in,
Mm.
yeah, not every moment has to be packed with beat after beat after beat.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what makes it such a powerful moment. And I
Mhm.
love that he puts the tape recorder on the seat where his dad's
Yeah.
clothes are. And it's like, to me, I'm like, it's like he's sitting with his dad one more time
Yes.
to have that
Yeah.
time and to realize, I mean, like you said, I didn't realize that whole context behind him, but just like he's just there as he is.
Mhm.
And that's a huge thing. One thing I always tell people I work with is I'll tell people I like you just the way you are.
Yeah, like Billy Joel.
Yeah, and we talk about, and I talk about this with my boys. I'm like, well, what does that mean? It means like if you won 100 trophies, I'd be impressed, but that's not who you are.
Right.
I like you the way you
Exactly.
are. If you messed up and you broke a bunch of dishes, I'd be bummed and kind of upset, but that's not who you are.
Yeah. I think it's a really important storyline that was only touched on briefly in the show, but Jim's integrity shows through because at one point his father invites him to come back home and he'll get his inheritance back,
Mhm.
and he turns it down. He
Mm.
doesn't want to go back to that life. Um, but your point about like putting the tape deck right there in front of the suit jacket, I mean, I still feel that way connected. The dog is making so many noises. I still feel that way when I hear like Doris Day or,
Mm.
Hold Me, Kiss Me, Thrill Me by Mel Carter. If that comes on the radio, I'm singing it at the top of my lungs because it just
Mm.
feels like my mom is right there. So the
Mhm.
power of music to transport us back to those moments or those people that aren't here anymore
Yeah.
was just displayed beautifully in that clip.
Yeah. And this kind of brings me to what you were saying. And I love that you were talking about you don't want people to quit music.
Mhm.
You want them to put something out there so they can be impacted. And I love that concept of this song you might release. It might be the last song like a mother and daughter have together. And
Yes.
that song will always be a reminder of that mom or that
Yeah.
brother. And I think it is really, I know for me, like one of the impactful shows that I kind of kept watching is my stepdad was diagnosed with a very aggressive type of leukemia.
Wow.
And this was 2 years ago. And there's a Scrubs episode where one of Dr. Cox's friends gets diagnosed with leukemia. And I watched that episode a couple times in a week just because you just feel it hit.
Yeah.
My stepdad is my stepdad, and he's like, I'm gonna push through this, and he's still kicking today, even though they gave him like 6 months back then.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but so I saved the second episode where the character Ben, who has leukemia, dies for when my stepdad passes away, but I haven't had to watch it. So
Oh, gosh. Yeah, isn't it's wild how, we have support systems, but there's a different level of support that we feel when we're able to watch a TV show that's playing out our storyline.
right, exactly. Is there any shows like this? Taxi's kind of a connection or bond with, well, I'm sorry, is it a bond between you and your sister and your mom, or do you feel like more closely like with your mom or sister?
Huh. That's a great question. You know what? We watched, okay, my family, I'm the baby.
Mhm.
My brother is 16 years older than me. My sister's 12 years older than me. And my parents clearly were much older than that.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up, there were so many shows of theirs, favorite shows of theirs that I was watching right along with them. I remember watching All in the Family right along with them. I
Mhm.
remember, watching the Jeffersons and things like that. But Taxi was one of those shows that I don't recall being introduced to until shortly before my mom got sick.
Yeah.
So I would say that my tie to Taxi feels more along the lines of like my relationship with my sister and what we were going through in that time,
Yeah.
because it wasn't one of those where I can think back to, oh, the good times when we were all in the living room watching the
Mhm.
show. It's like, no, that transports me back to when my sister and I were right by her deathbed, basically,
Mm.
watching it in a nursing home and seeing that her name was printed on the side of the VHS tape. Because
Mm.
and that used to bother me so much because all of her Rodgers and Hammerstein VHSs were there with her too. And
Mhm.
every single one of them, it felt like it was, graffitied on having to have her name on the side of these things because it was a reminder that she's now in a public space instead of at home.
Oh, sure.
So Taxi was one of the VHSs that had her name printed across it, and but then there's like I feel like it's like the subject matter, but also the theme song. Like the theme song is by Bob James, who, for anyone who doesn't know, is I believe the fifth or sixth most sampled jazz artist in history by
Oh,
rap
wow.
artists. He is, to this day, he performs a Blue Note with Slick Rick wearing Slick Rick's gold chain. Like
Wow.
he's unreal. He's amazing. And he happened to write this theme song
Mm.
that's just impacted my whole life.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Have there been other shows or anything that's like either you felt really related to or that you feel like has helped you come to understand who you are?
Oh gosh, yes. um, we would be here for hours. I would say though, I'm definitely one of those people that has her nighttime shows.
Yeah.
So as I'm laying in bed, I'm watching a few episodes of this and that, and it changes. But I will say the most recent ones I've been rewatching are Northern Exposure,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
Golden Girls, of course. Of course, Frasier
Nice.
is a big one. I
Yeah.
can't even count how many times I've seen Frasier. Cheers, Seinfeld, all of those.
Hmm.
But yeah, but I grew up in the TGIF generation too. So I was watching all the Clarissa Explains It All on
Yeah.
Nickelodeon and Family Matters, Fresh Prince. Like I'm a millennial with Gen X brothers and sisters with boomer parents. Like I got the best of all worlds, you
Yeah.
know?
That's awesome. Yeah, I think for me the most recent one is Ted Lasso.
I love Ted
Yeah,
Lasso. So good.
because exactly because that was I think I'm sure there may have been others, but that was one of the most relatable characters in the sense of I'm not a guy who likes to puff out my chest.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. And there's so much strength in Ted. And I always talk about like I want to be a piano mover because piano movers are incredibly strong, but they're also incredibly gentle.
Oh, I
And
love that.
and so I'm like I am incredibly gentle because I'm incredibly strong. Doesn't come
Love
from
it.
weakness. And so like just seeing Ted like the way he was just positive and all that stuff. And when I dressed as Ted Lasso for this conference, Comic-Con conference I went to, I was talking with a group of people and they were like, yeah, actually, when I'm outside this conference, I'm really quiet. I don't do this, everybody was saying, I'm like this outside, except for I don't have a Southern accent. Like that's the only difference.
Right.
But so it was just so nice to see that and see it like, and also he had panic attacks,
Yeah.
which I
Oh, I
also
forgot about
have.
those scenes.
And so
Wow.
it was just like, yes, everything's being handled well. So,
Yeah,
um,
such a great one.
yeah, absolutely. So, speaking of great ones, there's a great clip you picked next, and It's 4 minutes long. Let me know if you want me to cut it off at any point. Otherwise, I'll play the whole thing.
Oh, play the whole thing by all means.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Sounds good. So this is a second clip. Just really quick kind of setup for those who are listening to podcasts. This is where Jim he spikes Danny DeVito's
Louis
coffee.
De Palma.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. With is it tranquilizer?
Yes, a tranquilizer.
And he's normally very grumpy, and you can kind of hear it.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Cheers, he's like he's just like Carla from Cheers, but as a guy.
Yeah, hear that. Perfect. All right, so here's the clip.
You gotta get Louis to agree to this.
Well, maybe we can get him on a shift that Louis, you won't have to deal with Louis.
Well, maybe you could start another company, and once he breaks in, you could.
Hey, what was that?
What was what?
You just put something in Louis' coffee. What was
It
that?
was either a tranquilizer or a chiclet.
Jim, that's stupid.
Hey, Wheeler, get your mitts off my cup.
Yeah, but Louis,
Get out of here. Get your own coffee. Yeah. Judy? Do I sound like Judy to you? You got the wrong number, bone brain. Where was I?
You were giving him hell, Louis.
Oh, yeah. Krupnik, 301. Try something new tonight, like making money. Hendy, 338. One more ticket in your history.
I guess we can rule out chiclets.
Banta. Yeah, Louis. Yeah, Louis. Oh. Let's see. 901 looks nice. How you doing, Banta? Good, Lou. Thanks. Good. Lubna, 831. Hey, come on, guys. Let's get cracking here. Let's get the show on the road. Vodka. My golly. Let's get this cab out, huh? Zoom, zoom. Come on, boys and girls, let's roll them out. We were sailing away on moonlight days. We could hear the voices sing. They seem to say, everybody sing.
You have stolen my...
Now don't go. As we sang was ghostly song on moonlight bay, on moonlight bay. I think I'm gonna go upstairs and go to sleep now, Ma. Good night. We will sail along. okay if Jim comes and works here as a cab driver? Sure. Everybody works on Moonlight Bay.
The guy who plays Jim, he has such good facial expressions.
I know, Christopher Lloyd. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep. Doc Brown.
Yes. I was watching that again and I'm thinking of the last episode. I'm like, he's so just like good.
All of them, their acting was super specific.
Mhm.
And that's just not something you necessarily see anymore.
Yeah.
Because you had like theatrically trained actors on this show, with the exception, I don't believe Andy Kaufman was trained in the theater at all, but like also brilliant comedian.
Yeah.
If not super annoying to work with, with Tony Clifton and everything.
Right.
But yeah, the Marilu Henner, super specific, like all of them, every note was just right on with what their intention was for the scene and for that moment. Judd Hirsch, oh my God. I mean, just incredible.
Yeah.
You don't get cast like that anymore. And I can't even ever imagine anyone but Danny DeVito playing Louis De Palma. I heard this story about he went into the audition. I'm probably screwing up the story, so this is my theory of it. But I heard that he went into the audition as Louis and went up to the casting director's desk and tossed the script on the table and said, "You expect me to read this garbage?" And that's how he got the part, because he was so rude.
Yeah. It's awesome. Oh, that's so funny. I that's one thing I knew. I'm like, Danny DeVito I knew, and Christopher Lloyd I knew was from here, and then Andy Kaufman. And then some of the other actors, I was like, oh, I know them.
Oh, and Tony Danza.
Yeah, I didn't know he was on there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mandy Patinkin makes an appearance on the first season.
Oh.
Mandy, is your nose wet? Sorry, the dog is like right here getting all the pets she can.
Nice.
Yeah, Mandy Patinkin was in one of the flashback episodes of Cab 804 in season 1. And he's the husband of the woman that's giving birth to the baby in the back seat of the cab. It's so many legends on that show.
No kidding. That's amazing. And I laugh about this clip for so many reasons. One is like, I'm like, we all had that boss we wish we could have to calm down a little bit. Yep. And then the other reason it kind of makes me laugh. So with my anxiety, like I've had some anxiety medicine, but they just weren't helpful for me. And I was like, and then I had a friend be like, after it was legalized, be like, hey, you should try THC. And I was like, Jacob, no. No, what is wrong with you? Because I've never done any, like I'm a square. My first drink was when I was 21. First time drunk was like I was 27, 28. And so I was like, ugh. And they're like, well, I'm like, I'm not smoking anything. They're like, oh, there's edibles. I'm like, I don't know. Okay. So I like took a lot of convincing, but I tried it. And I feel like that's my transition at night. Yeah. Like where I'm like, oh, okay, everything's good.
You turn off the imaginary light like Danny DeVito did.
Exactly. And so it just makes me laugh. I'm like, I can relate to that.
Yeah. The one time that I had a can, I think it was a THC soda that I had picked up, and it was very low milligrams because I don't do well with that stuff. And I had the soda right before bed, and it was the best sleep of my life.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I time it out just enough that it's like I'm getting ready to go to bed. I feel it, and I'm out. Yep. Yeah. So it's I do like what you were kind of saying too with that whole cast of, and when you were saying like each cast has like a specific role. what always comes to mind is when Stan Lee from Marvel Comics created the Fantastic Four, because he talked about like you have the fast one, you have the strong one, you have the smart one, you have the stealthy one, and I think that does like make shows really good. I mean, we were talking a little bit about Ted Lasso. You got those very unique styles of characters.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like you can. I mean, just why I want to watch this series again, just for Jim.
Yes. And what's so funny is that he's not even in it from the beginning, but the beginning seasons, you don't think about like him not being there. They're still so good.
Yeah.
Every episode.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. When I rewatched it, when I was finally ready, I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, he makes his first appearance. And I don't know if that was the initial plan, was to bring him on just for this one small role in this one episode, but as Reverend Jim. Yeah. But then they ended up bringing him back later. I want to say he wasn't on maybe until end of season 2, start of season 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Season 1 is not, it's like, you know how Seinfeld started out kind of meh.
Yeah.
Not this show. This show, you hit the ground running from the beginning. Yeah. What I will say is that just how you were saying that Stan Lee was very intentional about who fills what role. I think the writers later on discovered that the characters of John and Bobby Wheeler, they could do without. Like the stories held up without them, and they got the laughs without them. So they went away. Yeah. But you don't really, I feel like that was a good decision though. I feel like the cast was almost more concentrated without them.
Nice. Yeah. It's so fun to see like the evolution of a show. And I also just like how that it almost takes on a life of its own.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of what all these media has been doing, what we've been talking about. Like they all take a life on their own in their own way, whether it's a reminder of somebody we love or a way to connect. And just, you know, what I think about is there's a band I like called AJR, and they have a song called Netflix Strip, and it's about The Office.
Oh.
And the song kind of is going like, you know, this happened to me when I was in like 3rd grade, and I would try to cross my legs like Jim would do. Or, you know, they would get a little bit more heavier. My mom died, or my grandma died during season 5. Wow. And my mom cried. All she could do was hold her kids, and I hugged her the way Michael did.
What a great concept for a song.
Yeah, it is so good. And then it's, you know, kind of finishes like, now I'm here. The series is done. Who I am and are these episodes, so don't tell me it's just a show. And wow. and so that's kind of what I just see of how that life it brings us. And the other thing I like with this, I always tell people my favorite music is seeing your favorite music through your eyes.
Oh.
Because to see the world through somebody else's eyes, I think is beautiful. So like seeing this show through your lens, I think is beautiful. It just changes it. And I think so in that sense, I feel like watching this, it's almost like I enter a holy space.
Wow.
The sacred place.
Sheesh,
of
Joe.
Like I am sitting here watching a show that connected Shay and her mom. Now everything changes.
Thank you so much for saying that. This is definitely one of those shows where, and I know you've probably experienced this a million times, where when you finally get somebody to agree to let you show them an episode and yes. They sit down and you know that it's a good one and you know exactly where all the juicy parts are and what kind of context they're going to need from this first few minutes in order to get the joke at the end. But then they start talking or they look disinterested or they're checking their messages. I'm just like, screw it all. I'm turning it all off because you're not ready. You're not ready to receive the taxi because it's just too sacred for me. Like, it's too good of a show.
Yeah.
And if you blink, you're gonna miss something important.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree with you, where it's like, see you on your phone, maybe just when I told you to watch this part,
I know.
just come on.
I'll be such a schmuck. I'll press pause and I'll just stare at them. I'll be like, do you need to take a call? Do you want to go handle that first? Are you ready now?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing that's so easily missed, is that there's a reason people want to show you this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, the other reason I like it is I don't think there's any way to, or a less intimidating way to talk about tough things in life. Because part of the reason I started this podcast, because I reference shows all the time in my basic life. Like so I think one of the things that recently has come up is, I work with people who are, they're struggling with drug addictions, and they are like getting out of the criminal system, and they're trying to get their lives back in order. And some of these people are still really struggling. And my desk mate, she was trying to talk to somebody, and he was yelling at her and cursing at her, and then hang up. And afterwards she was like, I just want what's best for him.
Oh.
And I was like, you remind me of a Scrubs episode where JD comes to see a patient, and he's like, I just want to see how you're doing. And Carla, the nurse, is like, don't bother with this one. And JD's like, well, Carla, please, sir, if there's anything I can do to make your stay more comfortable, let me know. And the guy goes, yeah, you can kiss my man-sized ass. And JD goes, oh, will you hold me afterwards? And so then like JD starts to try to kind of ignore him, make Carla do everything. And patient ends up dying. And so they end up having a hearing to see if JD was at fault. And they look at it and they're like, no, you gave him all the medicines, fine. And JD's like, well, can we talk about this a little bit more? And they're all like, what? No. Well, his mentor, Dr. Cox, comes at the end. He goes, the kind ones, the sweet ones, it's easy to treat them. But the abusers, the users, the jerks, we got to treat them too.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, for me, it's such a, like, it's almost my way to understand life. And so it's just, yeah, I'm glad you are that way when you have other people watch stuff and you're like, just watch.
Well, because we're ultimately letting them know who we are by watching this show. And so when they don't pay full attention, it feels like a personal rejection almost. It feels like we're being dismissed instead of the show. But that's so amazing with the demographic that you work with. And I think what's interesting too is the direction that they took Jim's character. I mean, this, again, for anybody who has never heard the show before, I don't want everyone to think that this is just a Jim show. It's so not. It's like, it's a full throttle ensemble cast. But with Jim's story in particular, it's like they were so well balanced in knowing that Louis De Palma, you couldn't get more low down and dirty than him. Yeah. But with Jim, even though he's an addict, and it's never really clear if he's a recovering addict or still using. Mm-hmm. But I could be mistaken, but I'm almost pretty sure that they don't make that distinction. But he's so good-hearted. Yes. And I mean, there's an episode where he gets winnings from the racetrack and ends up using the winnings to purchase the horse. Like, you know, he's just such a good guy. Yeah. And I think that was possibly ahead of its time, because in today's day and age where so many, you know, Gen Zers particularly, and millennials and anybody who's also interested in becoming an ally is trying to work at more, you know, equitable representation, especially in media. I think that it was kind of ahead of the game in creating this lovable character who was an addict. Like, I don't think that gets recognized enough. That's groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Imagine if he had gone a different way and they just made him just this random deadbeat.
Yeah.
It very easily could have gone there, but it didn't.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that. I like that concept you're coming up with on that, because I think also it puts that in our heads that, oh, these guys don't have to be scary. These people don't have to be scary, because I feel the same way with a lot of people I work with. I mean, they've had their moments of doing terrible things, but they're, a lot of it comes from untreated mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying their best. And some of these people, I'm like, I get to just come hang out with you. This is insanity to me.
Yeah.
This is wonderful. And, and I mean, I think for me, some of the most holy moments have come when I've been with somebody who struggles with meth or cocaine, and we are standing in line at a harm reduction van, and she's wanting to get safe needles. And I'm just around these people who are struggling. I'm like, these are people who are ignored. And I watch them be absolutely so polite and kind to one another. There's a community there.
Yeah.
And so, representation, I think, is good, because it's, actually, I was just thinking about this. I saw the first movie that handled schizophrenia really well. And that was, I think it was called Written Words We Write on the Walls.
Oh.
It's a powerful, emotional movie, but it's about this high schooler, and he's going through his first episode of schizophrenia, and just it's so brilliantly done, because it has, like, he starts getting on meds and starts helping, but he loses his sense of taste and he wants to be a cook. So it's like, well, what does he do? Does he get off the meds and so he can continue his cooking? Which actually, after I watched
Andy Garcia. Uh-huh.
Yep. And after I watched it, and then I looked at the title again, I'm like, that's why it named it. I won't spoil it, but it's
okay. It's one of those.
Yes, it's such a good movie. I am not a crier at movies, but this one made me cry.
I'm totally a crier at anything. It could be a commercial for a refrigerator.
Yeah.
And I will cry.
Hey, that was my mom too. I get it. But yeah, it's so powerful. So yeah, having those representations of seeing who we are in these episodes, I think is so powerful.
Yeah. Humanizing us. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any character in Taxi you relate to the most, or do you just appreciate them all?
Wow. That's a great question. I think that I've felt like every character at one point or another. Mm-hmm. Tony Danza's character, I have what I call my blonde moments. I mean, my hair is blue right now, but I am a dirty blonde.
Yeah.
And I find myself saying the dumbest things sometimes when I'm always like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that came out of my mouth. So those are my Tony Danza moments.
Yeah.
I wish that I had hair like Bobby Wheeler. Mm. His hair was just bouncy and voluminous. So I have yet to feel that way, but I'm hoping to at some point. But his aspirations towards becoming a professional actor obviously relate with my music career. Mm-hmm. Judd Hirsch, he's always been, Alex Rieger is his character, and Alex has always been the one that people feel comfortable going to for counsel, or he's always had his head on straight, keeps his just head down and just gets the job done. So I feel like on my good days, I'm like him. Mm-hmm. Louis, when I'm in traffic, and I am from Jersey, so that does come out. When somebody makes a bad turn on the road and they cut me off. Yeah, definitely the Louis comes out. But as far as the main Marilu Henner, Elaine Nardo, what a bombshell. First of all, drop dead gorgeous. And she was like, I want to say mid to late 20s when she played this role. But she took no prisoners. Like, she was just so badass. And I very much relate to her character because she was a mom on the show. She was very maternal to the rest of the guys. And I feel that way all the time. And she was also protected by them, which I also feel because I tend to have a lot of guy friends.
Yeah.
And her desperation to become an art gallery dealer, and to stop having to drive a cab, relate to that as well. So yeah, I can't think of how I've been Andy Kaufman, Laka Gravis's character, but I'll draw the line there.
I hear that. Those are good ones. You're talking about when you're on the road. I always think I hit this new level of like mindfulness and like understanding until I get on the road. Yeah. I'm like, hey, it doesn't matter what you've done. I like you, except for if you cut me off like that. And,
I want to say it was Kristen Bell who said, she was like, yeah, but if somebody cut me off, maybe they have to go, rush to go see their wife in the hospital. Maybe she just gave birth. And I've tried that and it lasted for all of 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know. That's where I'm like, I know I try to have those and I have my rare occasions, but more often than not, I'm like.
See, now I am dying to hear what road rage sounds like for somebody from Minnesota, because in Jersey and New York, we talk about representation. We have representation of it. Hey, what are you doing? Yeah. But what does that sound like as a Minnesotan?
So I'll be honest. Here's how it usually goes. Dude.
Is that it? Oh man.
Like on the inside, I'm really mad. But like that's always how I am. Like I'll be like, I'm angry, and then I'll come and I'll be like, hey, can I talk to you? And so like I don't have that. Like it's kind of why I wish I would, with Danny DeVito, I wish I had him in my pocket so I could occasionally be like, go get him.
That is hilarious.
I've come to embrace that. Like when I used to work in production, and if I was upset, I'd talk to my boss and I'd be like, I'm here to give you the business. And then I'd be like, you're probably shaking in your boots.
Oh my gosh.
And they'd always be like, oh yeah, really scared.
Oh, I'd hate for you to come visit New York and then have me show you around and you witness what comes out of my mouth, because you'd be like, he meant to give you back the $5 change. I'm sure he didn't mean to pocket it.
When I was in Chicago, I was with my cousin and he was like honking at people like, what the hell? I'm like, and then like I started to realize I'm hearing honks all the time. And I told him, I'm like, hey, can I make a pitch to your community that just honk when somebody does something right? Because I think there's going to be less honks that way.
Right.
Gosh. So yeah, it is funny. Like just that change. Yeah. I get mad, and I'm sure like my real anger comes from like getting lost, and that's when I'll start dropping F-bombs and get really upset. But other than that, like road rage, like I think I won't lie. I have the time I might like get really upset and do the old like what's this guy doing?
Yeah. But just even side-eye him real hard.
But even like if I get the middle finger, I'm more like, what did I do?
Oh, that's so. I'm gonna, that's gonna have to be my new method now. Is that if anybody pisses me off as I'm driving, I'm just gonna have to pretend that they're thinking, "What did I do?" Yeah, and I will try to take it easy. I'll try my best to take it easy.
I do think, I will say, I think a more effective approach than a middle finger is a thumbs down.
Oh.
Because I've done that one time and it was great. It was like somebody did something really dumb. I could tell they were looking at me in the mirror and I just went.
Okay, so I got a question for you, Joe.
Yeah.
So yesterday I was driving in Philly And I happened to be driving in front of a kid I'm developing the story here, whose daddy bought him his BMW, his shiny new BMW. And he kept honking at me for zero reason. I was driving beautifully.
Yeah.
He kept honking at me for no reason. And so I want to know, if you were in that position, which driver from Taxi would you have wanted to be, and how do you think they would have reacted?
Oh, gosh. Well, I feel like I'd go with Jim, because I like to think that it'd be somewhere around my mindset, like, oh, please, I'm flattered, but I'm married. Thank you. But no, I'm sorry. Happily married. Just like not registering. But otherwise, I mean, like I said, it would be nice to have a pocket Danny DeVito.
That's what I'm thinking. I would definitely have gone with Louis for that one.
Yeah, just like I mean, just like at the beginning of that clip. Like, I don't remember what the name is, but like, Darla, do I sound like a Darla to you?
Yeah.
And just rips into this guy.
Yep.
And so like having that, I think would be. Did you ever find out? When he drove by, was he like upset or?
No, he was a little putz. I'm embarrassed to say, because my sister's probably going to hear this episode and she's going to call me and be like, don't do that. But I slowed all the way down.
Nice.
I was in a 35. I probably went about 20 because he wouldn't get off my ass. I mean, where was he in a rush to with Daddy's BMW? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I could care less.
That's the go-to. That is the go-to move. I am always like, I've done that a couple times, the slowing down, like, oh, do you think this is going to work? It does work if you give me space and treat me well.
Exactly.
And that is how I handle, like, I don't tailgate. I'm like, I might get a little close, but then quickly be like, okay, that was my message that I wish I could go quicker.
Right.
I'll wait for you to make the move or I'll pass you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you said you would want to be Danny DeVito in that situation.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Anytime I need to advocate for myself, I wish I could channel him or Elaine Nardo, those two, because Elaine Nardo will do it in a very smart, sophisticated way most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes she'll go off, but it'll still be very pointed and rational.
Yeah.
Him, on the other hand, you're about to make an enemy. You're about to burn a bridge.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that every now and then. That's necessary every now and then.
Yeah. My dad could do that. He could do the Danny DeVito thing because he's a big guy. He's 6'2", but he was a construction worker. And the story I always tell everybody, like, this is where it comes in handy at times to be like that, is one of their friends, her husband was out of town and she went to go get her car tuned up and they took her for everything. They're like, oh, we can't let you go unless we take care of this. Oh, we can't let you go if you take care of this. And she was just like, oh, okay. Well, then my dad's on, he's like, no, they took advantage of you. Mm-hmm. So he goes up there and he's like, she's not paying. I know what you guys did. It's scummy, not going to happen. And there were three of them. They're like, well, hey, you need to like, get out of here or else we're going to throw you out. And he goes, well, then you need more than 3 people.
Hey.
And they gave her the money back. And so it was like, yeah, there's a time where that is so necessary.
Exactly. Yeah.
And kind of going to your balance of characters. I mean, this is why I kind of like that in life, because I always talk to people about, like, there's upside and downsides to each personality. Like my personality, I'm pretty sweet, kind. There's a lot of really good opportunity situations where that's great, but there's other situations it's not great. Yeah. Like times where, maybe I need to be a little more assertive and be like, hey, this isn't okay.
Same. Oh, I relate so much. Yeah. Yep.
So I've got a couple of questions I ask every guest, but before I ask that, is there anything else you want to cover?
No, I think we covered a lot here.
I think so. It was good. So 3 questions I have. First question is, which clip did you enjoy the most?
Oh, I can't choose.
You can say both.
I mean, they're so different. I'm going to say both. Yeah. Because I always have a hard time when it comes down to choosing favorites of anything, but they're both so impactful for different reasons.
Yeah.
And they both just demonstrate why this show is just so perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will have to say the first one. And I think it was just because watching it on its own and then watching it again with your contacts. I felt a lot more moved the second time I saw it. It was just like, that's so beautiful. So I really liked it for that reason. So thanks for that gift.
Of course. Oh, thank you, Joe.
The second question is, which clip did you feel like we got the most out of?
Oh gosh. Oh, is this going to be the theme of the questions?
Yeah.
I think probably the first one.
Yeah.
That obviously, like anytime it's going to tie to some sentimental value, it's going to be impactful, I think.
Yeah.
But what's so ironic is that the second clip had the most characters in it.
Yeah.
And yet we got the most out of the one where it was just a solo scene.
Right. No, I agree with you. I really like the discussion that came out of that.
Yeah.
And then the final discussion, if we had to do a deep dive, we had to pick one of these clips and just analyze every little thing. Which clip would you want to analyze?
I want to say both, but for the sake of not saying both again, I'll say the second one. Only because I went to a performing arts conservatory and I know what it takes to act at all times. And if you look closely and pay attention to everybody's reaction as the focus is on Louis and then extends to Jim, you'll see that every single person in the scene is still on. So it's definitely worth rewinding back and rewatching. Yeah. They're all a part of it. They're all just in sync.
Wow. This is why I always like going second, because I often am swayed. I was going to say the first one, but now I like that. Now I'm like, I might have to watch that clip just again.
Yeah.
And because it sounds, so I would go with that second one.
Awesome.
Perfect. So we kind of already talked about where people can find you. Is there any other things you want to add to this? Like I said, we'll put it in the clips. But anything else you want to add for promoting yourself?
Right now, my biggest goal is this year is focusing on making sure that I get that podcast of mine, the Millennial Musician Podcast, in front of as many independent musicians as possible. Yeah. Because you never know, even as confident as they might seem, how close a lot of them can get to feeling like it's time to quit. So the more musicians we can get this out in front of, the better. Yeah. Which means that if you subscribe to the show, especially if you rate the show on Apple or iTunes, or Spotify, that's what gets it out in front of more people. So that's where all my energy is going right now. Hopefully I have some new music in the pipeline myself.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
So you can find that at Shay Leonia on my website is shayleonia.com, or you can follow me on Instagram there as well.
Perfect. I was just going to ask that because I haven't checked out your music yet, but that is something I will be doing today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because it's that's awesome. Yes. Again, if you're listening to this, I like to believe you're a caring person, and you probably know somebody out there who is either interested in a musician or music or is trying to become a musician, and how nice it is to have that collaborative group and not to feel like
it's not genre specific. It's for if you're a hip hop artist, if you're a heavy metal artist, it does not matter. I've literally interviewed everyone from, the editor-in-chief at Ghost Cult magazine, which is a heavy metal magazine, all the way to Sean Satara was a recent guest who is a legend from Complex magazine as a hip hop journalist. Yeah, we've had it all. So come on over to the show. We got something for you.
Yes, please. That's so cool. Thank you for doing that. Like I said, I'm not a musician, but I mean, that's got to be scary stuff to put yourself out there, and just I think I don't know. I think it's lovely. I think everything about you is lovely.
Likewise, Joe. Likewise. You're wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for having me on and giving me an opportunity to talk about this show that means the world to me.
Yeah, of course. So glad you came on. It was sincerely a pleasure for me. I'm going to say this again after recording, so you know I'm not just BSing. I hope, I'd love to have you on again in the future. And
we could talk about Frasier next time.
Yes, that one I have seen almost all the episodes.
Okay.
So my secret hope with my sense of humor is always like after we're done recording, the guest would be like, "Oh no, I am never coming."
No, I'm always looking for anybody who will listen to me rant about my favorite shows. So thank you for the offer. I'll take you up on it for sure.
Yes, please. Well, I'll say she was a lovely guest, so have her on. All right. Well, thank you so much, Shay. I appreciate you taking the time. And for everybody else, we'll see you next time.